Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Conscious Lover series designed to supporting you to becoming the powerful and confident lover that the feminine desires. My name is Miko Lau, and I am a men's intimacy coach devoted to guiding men back to their hearts to reconnect to their masculine core and to liberate their sacred sexuality. And joining me today, we have Kyree Oliver. Kyree is a former Division One football player, digital marketer, and masculinity coach. He has interviewed over 1,000 people and has produced over $110 million for his marketing clients, all pulling in backgrounds around human behavior and curiosity in how we view the world around us. And today we're going to talk about what it means to be a well-rounded man. So Kyree, welcome. Super excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So Kyree, share with us and our listeners a little bit more about how did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, my gosh. Um it feels like this is what I was supposed to do all along. I just started coaching, I would say heavily the past maybe 2.5 years. The reason I built my marketing company was so that I could learn to market for myself. It wasn't supposed to become a full-time business, and it did. And so it sort of, the coaching sort of took a back seat while I was building my marketing company. But now I'm thankful that I get to coach because this is what I'm supposed to do and not because I need to pay rent next month. And it allows me a little bit more access to, I get to work with people because I believe I can help them, not because I need to pay my bills, because my marketing company does all of that for me. So it just allowed me, um, I think, more of a purity in my coaching business than what I've seen in most of the coaching space. And so it also is just it's a big part of who I am. It's something I've always done for friends, people around me. I just created a business around it, like I said, the last maybe 2.5 years. But it was all based on those interviews that I did. I did a lot of soul searching for myself when I was probably 19 to about 22. I did most of those interviews kind of within that time frame, and I just wanted to understand people. I figured the best way for me to understand myself was by understanding as many other people as I possibly could, and then figuring out what reflections of myself I could see in them, or who I wanted to become, or oftentimes who I didn't want to become. And so now I just translate all those thousand stories swimming around in my head, and I help other people with it.
Oh, I love that story so much. It's
Yeah,
very similar to what I'm doing here with this Conscious Lover series. Like,
I love
I
it.
want to soak in all of the wisdom and insights from experts and teachers and individuals like yourself and that have walked the path that have so much wisdom to share. And I'm so glad we're talking about this. I feel like success in business and career, what we're doing that we love, is so intricately tied to being a conscious lover. I think a lot of times we don't recognize that how we relate to people romantically,
Oh
even
yeah.
not romantically, it's 100% connected. So I'm curious, like, before you have the success in your digital marketing business as a coach, what were like the difference you saw in how you related, let's say, romantically in your life with women or partners versus now? Like, do you see any difference?
I always saw in other partners, and I'm certain this is true for everybody, what I needed to work on in myself. And so the first woman I was with back home, I was very reliant on her family. I was living on their property. I was living in a trailer. I was trying to figure something out. I knew I wanted to do something. This is while I was doing the interviews. I knew I was supposed to help people. I knew I was supposed to share my experiences and the experiences of other people, um, to make people's lives better, and specifically to make men's lives better, because I believe women's lives get better when men's lives get better. And so I think it reflected back to me like the independence that I needed. So I moved in my car here to Arizona from California, packed everything that I owned in a 4-door car, and didn't didn't look back. But it was right after we broke up, and it was the first time I'd ever been in a serious relationship. Um, and it was painful and it was hurtful, but it forced me kind of out of my own little nest, which would be in my hometown. And it made me go on an adventure that I probably wouldn't have gone on otherwise. And I would say next relationship. So I have a fiance now, but the relationship before her, it helped me get rid of the savior complex that I had. The I can help this person, that I just posted about it a few days ago, that your partner is not your project. And that was the big lesson that I learned there. My ex had borderline personality disorder and bipolar. And there was a whole 2 year, I have run this successful business, I'm a coach, I'm all this. And then behind the scenes, I'm dealing with a, suicidal girlfriend and family issues on her end, and things that just her life chaos I felt responsible for. And I think the lesson there was exactly that my partner doesn't have to be my project. Before, I believed I'm a coach, I'm helping people, I can fix people, and so my partner can just be a reflection of that. And now I've been able to step back and say, I can hold up a mirror sometimes, or I can ask you the right questions that get you to the right answer, but I can't go fix your life for you. I can't go make these things happen for you. And it allowed me to attract the fiance I have now. We've got an 8-month-old baby,
Wow.
and so things have turned around quite a bit.
There's one thing that you said that was really significant, and you mentioned like no longer fixing her, but simply being this presence, being almost this like structure, this container of safety for her to unravel. That is so key. And oftentimes, like we see that in a lot of men struggling for between having a successful career and also a successful relationship. Oftentimes they feel like it's one or the other.
Mm.
So, what have you learned about having a great partner and also supporting you, or maybe even magnifying your success in your business? You see any connection there?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Her everything she is amplifies everything I bring to the table. And so I see this a lot, especially in men's coaching spaces. Um, Guys think that it's a super relevant question to ask women what they bring to the table. And whenever I hear that, I just know that that man's never been with a great woman. Because to me, she doesn't have to bring anything to the table. She gets to amplify what I bring to the table. I have a house. She makes it my home. We build a life together, but I'm bringing the ingredients because she knows what to do with them. When I bring in the money, when I bring in my patience, when I bring in the characteristics that I try to embody in my business and in my personal life, she knows, without my understanding of how, exactly what to do with them to make my life better, easier, more fulfilled, that I couldn't have done on my own, and that no woman has ever been able to do with me in the past. So to me, it looked like recognizing that her job wasn't to do anything for me or bring anything to the table, but to amplify what I was able to bring and operate within the structure that I was providing, while still maintaining a partnership, while still maintaining or even a friendship inside of our relationship. And I realized that was probably the biggest thing that I saw missing when I looked at most other people's relationships. I think the foundation of friendship and the willingness to say, we're very separate structures as far as masculine, feminine, and neither one of us feels pulled out of who we are in order to satiate the other.
Mhm. Wow, everything that you just said, I got chills down my body because it is such a beautiful depiction of the dance between the masculine and the feminine essence, the true essence of these energies. And I really want to emphasize that even though conscious lover is centered around men, like it is also the part that the woman or whatever the feminine role in the dynamics of the relationship plays in that energy. It's a two-way street that
Yeah.
really amplify each other. When the feminine receives the support and the safety and the security from the masculine, she or whatever can really blossom, can really unravel. And then that as a byproduct can also support the masculine to further Amplify. Just such a beautiful, beautiful dynamics in the connection.
Yeah.
So, Kyree, I'm curious. I guess you work with men as a masculinity coach. What are some of the biggest challenge or resistance that you have seen in men
Mm.
that really stops from being where they could be in their masculine energies and the masculine power?
Yeah. So I look at the two different sides of let's call it the masculinity spectrum. Um I get the guy who has been the nice guy forever. He's been the girl's best friend. He's been the guy that they confide in. He's been the nice guy who's always around, but they've never been attracted to him. He's never gotten really what he wants out of with the women in his life, but usually probably in his career as well. He doesn't feel respected by the people around him, and he's not sure why because he's such a nice guy. And I'm certain he's gotten it before, the line from women when they don't want to date him anymore, or they've gone on a few dates and just says, "Oh, I feel so bad because you're such a nice guy." He's had that be his life story so far when it comes to romantic partnerships. And then I have the guy who is uh, usually the high achiever, usually very driven by ego of I need to succeed, succeed, succeed. But I realize the transaction he's making, this subconscious transaction he's making, is he's trading love for respect. And he's made that transaction over and over again in his life to the point where he has probably quite a bit of respect. He doesn't have love from the people he would like to be closest to him. So I work with a lot of like 7 and 8 figure business owners whose wives hate them, whose kids don't really know them very well, whose personal lives are garbage, but they have this gigantic business that they have to look like makes them happy. So these guys trade love for respect. These guys trade respect for love. And my job is to help them recognize you don't have to make the transaction anymore. How can we have both? And that's what I would be considering the masculinity equilibrium, is how do we get to this space where I'm no longer transacting love for respect, and can I have both?
Wow. So getting to the center of these two polar opposites. So how do we get there? How does a man get to this masculinity equilibrium?
My gosh, a series of good, long, hard conversations with me is usually what it takes. But I think a lot of times it can happen internally too. It's usually a longer process. For me, it was a longer process. I used to stare at myself in the mirror 3 days a week for about an hour each time. Um, and that's when you meet yourself. You meet all the things you love, all the things you hate, all the things you're embarrassed by. But you meet the genuine, here's who I am as a person. And I think only once we recognize that can we build off of it. So with my guys, what we start off with is a little bit of an assessment of here's who I currently am. And it's not about finance. It's not about what type of business I run or what type of job I have or how much I make a month or an hour. I base it all off of characteristics. When at the end of my life, how do I want to be described? What characteristics do I want to have attached to me at the end of my life? And I say, let's find 10 of these that fit who I'm looking to become. And how do I amplify these? How do I become more of this inside of my own internal space, my conversations that I'm having inside of my head, inside of my personal life / relationships, and then inside of my business or my career? And how do I find the characteristics that allow me to be this wholesome version of that person, let's say 10 or 20 years down the road? And so all of my client success is based on their ratings for themselves on those characteristics at the beginning and at the end of us working together. And that is the only metric we work on. All of the rest is crafting the conversation in your head about how does that guy operate?
Mm. Wow, like two things I want to highlight that you just shared. The first one is about having someone like you to have these hard conversations with can really speed up
Yeah.
this process, because oftentimes for men I've talked to that have came to me, their greatest breakthrough can be just saying yes to receiving support,
Oh
right?
my
We've
gosh,
been
yes.
so conditioned. I mean, men been so conditioned to say like, I got this, I don't need no help. So just by saying yes, I get to have a mentor, I get to have a coach to be vulnerable with, and that's huge. And then the second piece about how you spend an hour in front of a mirror for how long? 3 years, a year or something?
18 months.
18 months. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that is the ultimate way to creating intimacy with yourself, being
Yeah.
able to see yourself fully. And we cannot have intimacy with other people if we don't have that within ourselves.
So that was
So,
such a huge part, was
mhm,
recognizing like I can't give anybody else what I don't have for myself. I can only love somebody else as much as I love myself. I can convince myself that that's not true, but at the end of the day, it all comes back full circle. And at the end of it, I'll have recognized that that ended up being true. Even if I was able to convince myself that it wasn't at first, usually at the end of the day, those things fall apart. And then you have to come back to, man, I got to work on myself. Man, I got to work on myself.
that's how it is. We cannot escape that.
Exactly.
So, Kyrie, I'm sure like during those 18 months when you spend time with yourself in front of the mirror, a lot of difficult emotions probably surfaced
Oh
for
my
you when
gosh.
you created that space. So can you share a couple like of those incidents that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I would say the first thing I did, and this is something I would recommend to anybody. I don't talk too much about the staring in the mirror thing, especially right now because of how prevalent like mental health issues are. I made a promise to myself at the beginning: if something comes up that I don't believe I am emotionally equipped to handle, I will go seek help immediately. And so, anybody who does this practice, I would say you have to make the same promise to yourself that if something comes up that you can't handle, the ego has to go away and you have to be willing to go get help. Luckily, it never got there. But it was a whole lot of tears. It was a whole lot of acceptance. It was a whole lot of breaking down and building up better. And I would say differently. The way I processed emotion at 19 is not the way I process emotion now. And I credit a lot of that to the work that I did at that time. So it was it was a little bit like rewiring how I processed emotion through just relating to myself. Like you said, just creating that intimacy with myself. It was the point was for me to rewire and say, how do I want to feel these emotions moving forward? How do I want to process emotions moving forward? And it's just a question I don't think most men have ever asked themselves, let alone, I've never even calculated how many hours I spent doing that, but it was specifically for this work. And now I get to see it in my daily life. My clients get to see it. My fiance gets to see it. When something happens that we didn't plan or something throws a wrench in our lives, we've had quite a few instances since we've been together, not between each other, but just external things outside of ourselves. We lost 3 of our dogs last year, all
Mhm,
for different reasons. Like I tried to find a pattern, but they were all
mhm,
for different reasons. None of them were connected.
mhm.
And watching myself and having to then provide structure for her to process, that was where my work really showed through. I would say it showed through in my last relationship as well, with how I handled the tumultuous up and downs with her mental health. But I would say this is the first time that I had a partner where it was me and her against something else, and it wasn't us clashing against one another. And so it was, how do I quickly and effectively and honestly process how I feel so that I can then go provide support for her. And the shorter that amount of time is that I have to handle me, the longer and the more present I can be with other people and handling them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you first mentioned about the importance of saying yes to receiving support from like trauma-informed coaches or
Oh
any
yeah.
professionals in that space. It- To me, the new strength in the man is vulnerability, and that gets to be the new paradigm in how we see men and even women and how we uh, be present without weak
Mhm.
emotions. Why did I even say weakness? See
But that's
the
how it's
condition.
perceived. That's how we see
Yeah,
it. Absolutely.
yeah, but that gets to be a new paradigm. We get to look at emotions as something that can really empower us. And the way I look at emotions, the moment we integrate and we process and release these emotions, these natural sense of power and confidence and
Oh my
joy and
gosh, yes.
happiness, it's in there. It just gets to come out. It just gets to be expressed. So, and then also, I want to say, Kyree, on behalf of like all of the feminine energies out there, like, thank you so much for doing the work and learning how to meet your own emotions, because there is nothing more magical and healing to be met by a masculine presence that can hold space for the feminine to really be in her wild emotions. Like, that
Thank
is
you.
just so healing. So thank you.
Thank you. It was
Yeah.
weird. It's interesting, the paradigm shift, like you said, from addressing and understanding your emotions as a man. I realized that it made me more powerful. I realized that when I am not suppressing all the time, because I think most men, I forget who it was who said this amazing quote, that most men live a life of quiet desperation. And I believe that that is the, man, I think it's the story of most guys. I think it's this silent suffering that most men go through that you'll never see, but it's for the sake of looking like they have it all together. What I realized was my breaking down allowed me to actually build up genuinely having it all together. Even when something happens, it's not that I don't show emotion, it's not that I don't break down. All two of our dogs that passed, I was a wreck. I was a mess. When, oh my gosh, my daughter showed up. We have an 8-month-old. As soon as I laid eyes on my daughter, I was a big blubbering mess of, I'm also 6'6" and like heavily tattooed. It's not, I'm not like the regular guy. I still have those moments, positively and negatively, of overwhelming, gushing, rushing emotion. It's then how I go and process and handle it that's important. And it makes me, in my understanding, untouchable by other people's influence on my emotional state. I get to choose, after a certain amount of time of processing, I get to choose my emotional state, but it is never dictated by other people.
Mm. Yeah, and that is such, that to me, it's the ultimate freedom. Such an easeful, relaxed way of being when we can fully allow ourselves to express our emotions and every aspects of the human
Yeah.
experience. So, Kyrie, as we are wrapping up, I will love to talk to you forever, but time is coming to an end. I'm curious if you have anything to say to any men or listeners tuning in right now, if they are like still on the verge, maybe like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. How do I take this step forward? What would you say to these individuals?
Yeah. I usually have people look at, again, who I'm looking to become in 10 years or 20 years. Um, Younger people, I usually have go out about 20 years. After about 35, I have you go out 10 years. Who am I looking to become and what life am I looking to have? And then I have to recognize that I only gain access to that person after I go through this type of work. I can only become this person. I do not have access to becoming them until I make the decision to do the things or have the things or be the person that that person has become. And it's a weird sometimes thing to think about, if I have to think about a different person, but it is also me. But when I can pull out and I can create a clear vision of who that person is and how they operate in their lives, I can then say, here's the difference between myself right now and that person. And I can start bridging the gap. And usually, so much of it has to do with emotional connection with myself and with the people around me.
Hmm. Okay, so that's homework, or what I like to call play work for the listeners to get to start whatever resonated with you, however ways you would like to get clear on this vision of yourself that Kyrie has generously shared. Like, go do that. If it's the mirror work, if it's journaling, whatever that is, go get clear on what this vision is, and please share it with us inside of our Facebook group. And we would love to hear and celebrate you alongside with everyone else. So, Kyrie, how can our listeners stay connected with you?
Yeah. Most of my content that I post is on Facebook. I think it's, if you look up my name and they're friends with you, they'll find me. Um, Instagram, it's just at Kyree, Kyree. Um, my website doesn't have much on it. I think I just kind of threw up like a bio and a few ways for people to contact me on there. That's Kyree.com. KYREE.com. I believe that's it.
Awesome. I will make sure to link all of that in the same email this interview went out to. And on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, Kyrie. And also, I want to say thank you to the listeners that tune in today. Please share this with anyone in your life that you know can absolutely receive Kyrie's wisdom and your beautiful presence today. So thank you so much.
Thank you again so much.
All right, everyone else, we'll see you again next time.